What is up, guys? We have a pretty cool project today that we're going to be doing. I'm going to be doing a brake caliper, some brake caliper painting today. I have this G2 caliper paint kit that we're going to be doing on this car. So the color I picked is going to be yellow. I think it'll definitely stand out very good on this blue color and liven it up. I do already have my horns up front. These are yellow, so it's going to be pretty much exactly the same color. So before we get into this kit, I'm gonna go ahead, jack up all four corners of the car, and we'll get everything on jack stands, take these wheels off so we can get access to these calipers. Let's take a second here just to go over this kit and everything that comes in here. So G2 brake caliper paint system. I got the yellow in color. So we'll open this up. Inside you're gonna have a can of brake cleaner to use to clean your brakes before you do this. You're gonna have the actual paint itself. So that's gonna be the color yellow right there. It's a pretty small can, but a little bit does go a long way. I'll explain that in a little bit here. And then we have a little bag right here, and we'll open this up and see what's inside. What you're gonna get is a bunch of brushes. So these comes with 3 different types of brushes. Looks like they changed this up from the past. Previously it was just one brush. But either way, nonetheless, these brushes are pretty crappy and the bristles come out. I would not recommend using these. I'd recommend buying yourself a nicer set, like I did here. These are just some makeup brushes. These are gonna work absolutely amazing for this. They're pretty short tipped, short fibers on them, and they're also not super big in size, but these work great. You're going to get just a stir stick. You have your activator for the paint, so these two go hand in hand together. And then they have a couple gloves and just some stickers and then directions right here. So I'll read through these just to double check and make sure that I'm doing everything correctly. But first thing that we're gonna have to do though before we get into any of this painting is we're gonna have to clean up these calipers and prep these so that way that paint has something to stick to. Everything's up in the air right now. So these are our calipers right here. We're gonna use a wire brush on a drill to start by getting off this main debris. I'll probably hit them with some brake clean first and then wipe it off, and then we'll use that wire brush. Remove pretty much any grease, dirt, or any debris that's on here that would get in the way. I just went over every caliber with the drill and the wire brush, so we'll spray these off one more time. And then what we're going to do is I like to take a red Brillo pad and we're just going to go over everything, make sure that we hit all the spots on this, and if there's any tight or hard to reach areas, we can go in there and get all those. So this will be the last step, and then we can finally move on to painting these. I did end up removing both my caliper and the bracket piece right here. We're taking these off because I do want to remove these rotors, and we can also get these pads out of here too as well. So basically I'm going to mount both the caliper bracket and the caliper back on here with nothing on here, so that way we don't have to worry about precise painting. Removing this rotor, so it looks like there's just one little Allen key right here. It's a 5mm, and we just have that on the impact here. So we'll go ahead, we'll zip this off. Now we should be able to tap this with like a hammer or a rubber mallet, depending on how seized on it is on here. I am gonna swap them out with the ones on my other car. I do have drilled and slotted on that car. So once these calipers are all set and done, we will go put my drilled and slotted on these ones and swap these over to that. I'm gonna do one last final clean on every single one of these with the brake cleaner and then just wipe this off. As you can see, there's no rotor on here, so basically we're just gonna be painting a floating caliper right now onto the paint. So as you can see, this is only about 1/3 of the way full of this whole container right here. You're probably thinking that that's not that much. This is probably enough for me to do 2 whole entire paint jobs on 2 different calipers for my car if I really wanted to. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna split this in half. So I'm just gonna pour half of this into, I have some other cups right here. We'll go pour half in here, and then we're gonna take half of this reactor and we're gonna pour half of this into there, mix it up, and then we'll save the half for something else in the case that we need to redo them or if something doesn't turn out right. We'll let that set, and in 5 minutes we'll come back and we'll start brushing this on the car. You want to wait 15 minutes in between coats, so I'm gonna work my way around the car, and by the time I get back to this caliber, it's gonna be about 15 minutes. We'll just put a couple of coats on each one of these. We'll see how many it's gonna take. I just finished brushing the paint on all these calipers. You'll notice when you use this kit, the first coat, it doesn't really quite cover everything. And then you do another coat, and it starts to fill in really nicely. When you do brush this on too, this paint is very good at leveling out and giving it a nice smooth surface. So right now it's a little bit rough, but this should level out. So I just finished using the rest of that paint. I was able to get 3 coats on every single one of these calipers and then do a little bit of touch up going back around. Definitely is time consuming, but this paint does turn out very nicely when it's done. The only thing that turns out better than this is going to be either powder coat or ceramic coat, and that's about it. Here's the rears. Here's what these look like. And again, this is just after paint. These are not done drying. These will dry in 2 hours, dry to the touch, and these fully cure within 24 hours. I'm gonna come back tomorrow and we'll go ahead, we'll reassemble everything. It's now the next day and these calipers are pretty much completely dried up, dried to the touch. Nothing's gonna come off on your hand. I'm gonna go ahead, we will need to start reassembling some of this and putting this back together here. We'll get my other rotors on, my drilled and slotted. We'll throw the pads back together and we'll get all of that assembled in here. I need to go ahead and pull my other car into the shop here so that way we can have them just side by side and I can swap parts over and take them off. So we'll go ahead, pull this car in. Red now pulled into the shop, so we're just going to start doing this basically one side at a time. We'll start with the passenger side over here and get these off. I'm just going to do another time lapse for this. Nothing interesting, it's just repetitive work that you got to do. So let's get this started. Let's go slap this rotor onto our car here. Couple things, since we're doing this side over here, we're going to use brake cleaner on this rotor right here, clean both the front and the back side off, make sure everything is nice, tidy, ready to go. This wheel hub bearing right here, we're going to put a little bit of anti-seize in between each one of these parts where the bolts go through for my lug nuts. So I have some anti-seize just in this little container right here. And then since I don't know if these have been lubricated or not, we're going to lubricate these brake caliper pins in here, both the front and the bottom side, and then these bolts that hold in the bracket. We're going to be using some thread locker. This is just the blue thread locker. And then we'll go ahead and reassemble once we get this rotor back on. So there's a couple steps to it, a couple different lubricants and stuff that we need to throw on here, but I want to make sure that everything is 100% good to go. So this is the anti-seize. We're gonna take a little bit of it. This container's really getting down there, but just put a little on your finger, small dab, and then just rub it right in here. And you do not need a lot either. This is just so your rotor will not stick on here and be an absolute pain to take off in the case that we need to remove it. And then on the rotor part, right here, same thing, in between any one of these spots where the lugs go, we'll just do a nice thin coating on here too as well. Next, we will remove this caliper and the bracket. I need to be extremely careful not to damage any of this brand new paint that we got on here. So I'm gonna cover up this caliper part with just like a cloth or any piece that would prevent it from getting scratched, and then we'll remove this bracket very carefully so that way we can get the brake pads in here and also get the rotor on next. We can now throw in our rotor part. So make sure you have your set screw. We're gonna set this rotor up here and then we'll get this in here next. I don't know what the torque spec is, but just make sure it won't come off though. We're gonna work on the bracket right here. We're going to get the pins lubed up. So these are the 2 pins. We're gonna pull these out. These just will pull out, but they should be able to squeeze and bounce back pretty well. These ones don't look like they're bouncing back as well as they could. They are they're able to move around, so that's a good sign. But let's get these pins out of here and we'll get these lubed up. I brought over my caliper bracket so that way I can show you a little bit better what I'm talking about with these pins. I just pulled one out, and this is the reason why you inspect your stuff when you have it apart. So when you pull this out, it shouldn't come out that hard, and this isn't too bad, but there is a little bit of gunk on this which you don't want to see. So check out this other one here. Pull it out, twist it back and forth. You can already see quite a bit of gunk on there. Not good, not ideal. The end looks a little bit rough too as well. So we're gonna clean these up, and the best way to clean these up is with a wire wheel. We're just gonna wipe it off with just a rag really quick. And these are also pretty dry too as well, which isn't what you want to see. These should be pretty lubricated up. So once that's good, take our drill, come over here, just a wire brush on it, and we're just gonna go over the whole thing. Now we're gonna lube these pins now that they're clean. So this is what I'm using, just some Sil Glide brake lubricant. We're going to very generously apply these to both of these, and then we're gonna take them and slide them in and out of these pieces right here on the bracket. And I just want you to see how much I'm putting on. I'm gonna take this, spread it around with my finger. These are inserted with the grease in there. As you can see, when we squeeze it, bounces back. Definitely a lot better than it was. So this one, bottom one, squeeze in, bounces back out. So that's good. Make sure you work this, kind of twist this pin all around in order for that grease to get everywhere inside. This bracket is now good to go on the car. Insert our clips into these brackets so that we can install our brake pads. And next up are brake pads, which these, so this is the brand, it looks Select Ceramic. There is plenty of pad life left on these. These actually look brand new, so definitely nice to see that. So these will just go in place of those clips right where we set these. Also, before we do put these on, you want a little bit of brake grease right on the ears of the pads. So that's going to be right here on this end, right where it goes into the actual bracket on both sides. I just placed a little bit of blue Loctite on my bolts that are going to be mounting in my bracket here. So now we'll go ahead, get this bracket mounted in, get it bolted up, and get it nice and tight. If you're wondering what the torque spec is on these, it's tight. Next thing to do is we'll take our actual caliper, place it right over the top of our pads, right here, and bolt it in. Everything is set and bolted up on this. So last thing we can do is give this one final cleaning with brake cleaner, wipe everything down, and we are essentially good to put our wheel back on. I'm gonna do the rest of the wheels on the rest of the other 3 wheels, finish this up, and then we'll save the wheels for last. I did have to go out and rent a caliper compressor tool in order to compress the rears on this vehicle. So the reason being, normally I'll just use a C-clamp, but I can't get the C-clamp over this entire back portion right here. There's a lot of e-brake stuff going on. So we're just gonna use this kit, should make things a lot easier. One more finishing touch that I'm gonna do to these calipers. So these are some leftover stickers that I have from a previous build. There's 2 sizes. You got the size for the front, which is the bigger ones on top, and then you have the ones for the rear on the bottom. These are just gonna get stuck on here right about in that location. So these will look pretty good. What I'm gonna do is I need to cut these out individually. So I'll just cut these out into strips, and then we'll get this surface cleaned here with just some rubbing alcohol, wipe it off real quick, and then we can stick these on here. Get it exactly how you want this. And once you're happy with it, we will stick it down into place. So right about there. Okay, make sure it's nice and tight. Now we're just gonna go over it with our finger, press everything down, go over the letters is the main part. That's the only part that's going to be sticking down that you want. So just get those really good. We'll take this backing piece and just peel it off, and it should leave the letters on there. When we peel this off, just make sure the letters stay down. Looking good. Everything's staying down very nicely. Just like so. All the wheels are now on the car. I'll just do a quick walk around, show you everything. Everything turned out awesome, just as expected. So you can definitely see that little decal through the wheel. Nice little touch to it. Looks good. I'm happy with how all these calipers turned out. And we still do have literally half of a can of that caliper paint left if we needed to do either another job or if we needed some touch up on this at some point. Okay, and we'll get over here to the last one. Right there. Basically, the last thing to do with these is we'll get inside the car, pump the brake a couple times, make sure that it does have pressure and it doesn't go all the way to the floorboard, and then just take it out for a quick test drive, kind of break in these brakes, break in these new slotted rotors, make sure that everything with those brake pads seats on them properly. So that's going to be it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.